So if we're going to be successful in therapy together, we've got to be very clear about what we're trying to achieve. But before we get clear on what, we're going to get really clear about where you find yourself at the moment. So for example, if you're on a cliff face, hanging on by your fingernails, and you're in the middle of a cyclone, that's a very different proposition to just relaxing on the beach on a sunny day. So one of the ways that you can reflect upon where you're at this stage of your life and what you need to prioritize is what I call the states of change model. And I want to introduce you to some of those states here and ask you to reflect upon where do you think you are and what do you think you need to prioritize first. So the first and most precarious of these levels is that of crisis. And the best example that I can give is if you've been caught under an avalanche, you've got multiple layers of boulders on top of you. I don't care how strong you are, how determined you are, how intelligent you are, you're going to need other people to come in and help. It's as simple as that. And the more you push, and I see this a lot for people who've survived some really difficult situations, their first response is determination of, I'm fine, I will get out of this. That can be the most dangerous thing that you can do. In terms of your state, there is the potential that you can deteriorate under those circumstances. And so that sort of, false bravery in a way can be a great deficit here. So in true crisis, you need emergency services. You need a crane to come in, lift those boulders off, for you to be airlifted out so that you can actually recover, heal, and then start to move on. So in these circumstances, it might be, how do we get someone else to assist with boundaries so that you're not going to have any of these dangerous factors coming in and destabilizing you? How do we bring in things? And medication can be a controversial issue for people. A lot of people have very different opinions about it. I've got a video explaining my stance. You can have a look at that. So I won't discuss that here. But we have to get practical about how do we have less of the bad, more of the good, and more often than not, how do we do that with the right people? And so sometimes having a therapist that can help navigate that with you, not taking the power out of your hands, but with you, consulting about what's likely to be the best path forward and who are the people that we can bring in that are going to be both trusted and effective. So often that is the most powerful starting point whenever we're in crisis. So the next level is that of survival. And this is the area where most of my patients reach out to me for help. And they'll tell me things like, I just feel like I need to reset my life. I feel like I've got the handbrake on, the whole existing rather than living phenomenon where your energy is just a little bit flat. And what happens is that there's just no sense of traction in a particular area that's really meaningful to you. So it might be relationship patterns, finances, living your life purpose, any of those things that despite your best intentions and your New Year's resolutions, year on year, nothing really changes. So universally, what's happened is your protection is now becoming an obstacle and you just don't see the forest for the trees. You may have some insight into that, but you're probably minimizing it. And then you don't know what to do with it if you did. The reason that the protection is so effective and blinding is that it's holding you back and protecting you from old pain. So what we can do is we can basically desensitize that pain one little bit at a time so it doesn't feel overwhelming. Once you've done that, the next stage is usually there's a little bit of grief. There's a little bit of sadness that, oh, okay. So as a result of minimizing this my whole life, it's protecting myself against the fact that I've actually been pretty alone with that. There's a bit of sadness there that no one noticed, no one cared, and that was just an inaccessible part of me. So there's usually a little bit of sadness. So once we've identified it, we've shown the protective parts of you that this is actually safe. It's kind of beautiful actually to be able to access that the sadness is no longer overwhelming. Then the handbrake comes off. Then we start to feel more alive. Then we start to move up to the next level. So as you transition into growth, it's usually through this really interesting period where you are moving from sadness to celebration. You're moving from grief to growth and you're kind of cycling backwards and forwards, letting go of some of the old sadness and moving forward into the fruits of your exploration. And so there is usually a real spontaneity that comes into this phase. And that one of the lovely things is that you start to have a series of lifetime firsts. And so I'm often celebrating these in therapy. But by that stage, patients are usually going, yeah, it's not that big a deal. It's who I am now, because they've just become accustomed to that. So you'll also find that you are relating differently with the world. So the world relates differently with you. So one of the other signs of a growth phase is that your friendships start to change. They either start to adapt around more of your needs in terms of who you've become now, or really who you've, the true nature of who you've always been starts to get acknowledged and responded to. And then the parts of those friends or friends entirely can drop away because the relationships don't work anymore because you're not the same person. The other sign of a growth phase is that you're getting as much out of your life therapeutically and learning as much there as you are in therapy. In the survival phase, usually people look forward to therapy as this groundbreaking, illuminating place where it's the source at that phase. But what you find is that there is a sense of, I'm getting almost more out of my life than I am out of therapy now. This is what we want. We want to be transitioning towards therapy, providing freedom through healing so that you can go out, lead your life, develop new skills, and can start to move forward with the life that is actually serving you. So that's one of the hallmarks of this period as well. And the growth doesn't stop there. We start to move up to our next level. And let's talk about that. So one of the signs that you've arrived at a level of thriving is that you'll feel content and there'll be a sense of ease. The reason for that is that you have less stress in your life and you have more nourishment. And so you don't have to fight as hard to get what you want. A lot of that protection is no longer necessary, the excessive protection. And in its place, this sense of exploration and creating your own luck, bringing in good things by chance, reestablishes who you think you are and what you think of the world. The world becomes a safer place with far more possibilities. So as a result, you're less prone to anxiety, you're less prone to depression. All that energy then gets put into, well, how good is this? Into appreciation. And then that sense of ease in finding things that are even better. You start relating with people who are wanting to help. They're aware of your needs before you are. So life is getting a whole lot easier. One of the signs that you're in this phase is the idea of effortless effort, but effortless leadership. So now not only are you leading your life, but there's a sense of you've got something special to contribute to other people and to the world, and they recognize it. Whether they are reaching out, asking for help, or just wanting to be around you, there can be a sense of like what I would think of as a quiet charisma. It's not a narcissistic thing where you're out there bragging, but people just recognize that you're competent and they have faith in you without having to prove yourself. It's just who you are now. So that's a really interesting part of it as well. In terms of the therapeutic process, your needs have changed. Your needs are being met really effectively. So you're not really needing therapy so much anymore. So once you've had a sustained period where you're in this thriving phase, what will happen is that you'll usually take a break from therapy. You might come back in 6 months. You might come back in a year. And when a new challenge presents itself, as it does in life, you might do 2 or 3 sessions where you just review where you're at, how you're responding, and maybe just augment or add a new set of skills so that you can step up and adapt to how life's unfolding. So have a think about where you are in relation to this model right now. It might have given you some ideas about what you'd like to discuss with me and what we're going to prioritize together. And I hope it's given you some ideas about, some of the genuine positives that lie ahead for you.